Urgent, Turkey and Azerbaijan have launched an offensive. It's the end for Tehran and Moscow. Erdogan has gone through with it. The Kremlin has been nullified. Putin's bet on Iran didn't work out. A Turkic strike at the heart of the Axis. The southern front has exploded. The AFU struck where no one expected. Ukraine is taking back what is theirs. A total breakthrough. The enemy is fleeing, abandoning everything. Russia's defenses have been breached. Our defenders have launched an unstoppable offensive. Belarus is on the brink of hell. Lukashenko is preparing to strike Poland, but Warsaw has already pulled the trigger. Minsk is next. The powder keg of Europe is about to explode. In Minsk, they can smell trouble brewing. Shock. Beijing and Washington have made a secret agreement. Xi has begun a ruthless takeover of Russian lands. Russia is being cut to the bone. All this and more in our upcoming report. Hotspot. Shock. The Turkic fist against the axis of evil. Ankara and Baku have lost their patience. Turkey and Azerbaijan are launching a decisive offensive. Check and mate for Tehran's Moscow. Erdogan has played his trump card. Putin has bet on Iran but risks losing everything. See the details.
The Caucasus is on the brink of joining the war in the Middle East. Turkey and Azerbaijan are preparing for a conflict with Iran and Russia.
Our armed forces, the Ministry of Defense, the State Border Service, and all other special forces units have been brought to mobilization level 1.
As part of the mobilization level 1 announced by Aliyev at the Security Council meeting, Baku has begun calling up reservists and the army has been put on full combat readiness. Earlier, in response to shelling by Israel and the US, Iran began firing all its weapons in every available direction. In addition to Azerbaijan and the Gulf kingdoms, Iranian ballistic missiles were shot down over Turkey, and Shahed drones were intercepted near the island of Cyprus.
Under no circumstances will Turkey leave the defense of the country to chance and will act decisively.
The political leadership of Iran, represented by the foreign minister and the president, at times they deny the strikes, then they repent and make promises to stop. But judging by the actions of Ilham Aliyev and Recep Erdogan, no one believes the words of the Persians.
Turkey is considering the possibility of deploying F-16 fighter jets in Cyprus, according to a source in the Ministry of Defense.
The Azerbaijani ethnic group in the northwest of Iran is adding fuel to the fire of tensions between Baku and Tehran. According to various estimates, there are between 30 and 40 million people living in Kazakhstan. On the territories controlled by Tehran, there are ethnic Azerbaijanis.
Starting from the Treaty of Turkmenchay, that's when Azerbaijan was divided into two parts. One part went to the Russian Empire, while the larger part went to what is now Iran, which we refer to today as Southern Azerbaijan, where 40 million of our ethnic brothers now live. We also understand that modern history, the last 35 years, because modern secular Azerbaijan is like a belt around Iran. What kind of belt?
Potentially, Moscow will become an ally of Tehran in its confrontation with Baku and Ankara. The Kremlin is already providing Iran with military and intelligence support. They do not
support us politically or on other issues. Military cooperation between Iran and Russia is no secret. You know, we've worked with each other before, and this continues and will continue, I hope.
The Gulf countries which are being struck by Iran are finding Russian components and drones. But what is even more important is that against the backdrop of rapidly developing events in the Middle East, the value of the South Caucasus is rising significantly for the Kremlin.
Pressure on Azerbaijan isn't working because Putin clearly doesn't want so much to quarrel with Ilham Aliyev as to get into a direct conflict with Recep Tayyip Erdogan. But as the region's role increases as a region of stability in the event of an unstable Iran and unstable Gulf countries, Russia may try to play its own game here. And this is very dangerous for the countries of the South Caucasus. This simply needs to be taken into account.
Will Putin dare to open a second front in the South Caucasus? Will Baku, in coordination with Ankara, launch military actions against Tehran? The region is heating up rapidly, and we will learn the answers to most of these questions in the near future.
The South's ablaze. Ukrainian forces breached enemy lines in a full breakthrough. The enemy flees. Our native land is returning home live on air. Our defenders have launched an unstoppable offensive. The occupiers are frantically trying to plug the gaps, but Ukrainian artillery and drones have turned their rear into a graveyard. All the latest news from the front line, watch now.
The outline of the Ukrainian Armed Forces offensive in the south has disrupted the Kremlin's plans for spring 2026. This was stated in a new report by analysts from the Institute for the Study of War.
Right at this very moment, what we are currently witnessing down in the southern region is clearly one of those significant strategic attempts to seize the initiative, to change the enemy's plans, to force them to act as our command intends. And this neutralizes their advantage and strength. In
particular, due to the advance of the defense forces, the Russian military command has redeployed elite airborne and marine units from the Pokrovsky direction and Dobropilya to the southern front.
We are stabilizing the situation there, carrying out counterattacks. It's a back and forth kind of war.
On the one hand, we are pushing them back, even launching counterattacks and liberating certain small areas. They are trying to continue in other sectors.
But analysts note that they have fewer and fewer forces left to continue. The Russian group, which was supposed to consolidate over the winter and launch a massive spring offensive, ultimately experienced the opposite effect. There are no fresh units to draw from, and the existing forces are constantly being shifted along the front line to plug gaps. As a result, the General Staff of the Armed Forces of Ukraine is already noting that the number of enemy assaults has decreased.
At different times and on different days, they had 200, 250, up to 300 assaults daily. Now we are recording about 127, 125. This indicates that all the resources they are using along the front line are not unlimited. They are now trying to maneuver their troops because they can no longer generate, as they noted, 8 strategic directions from Sumy to Kherson.
In recent days, this has been most noticeable in the area of the settlement of Pokrovsky. There, our fighters continue their advance. And even the fact that Russia once again transferred its reserves here did not change the situation.
Ukrainian fighters managed to secure positions in Ternov, as well as drive the enemy out of Berezov, and likely entered Novokhrihorivka and engaged in battles for Slatko.
At the same time, Russian attempts to maneuver along the more than 1,200-kilometer front line are opening up new breakthrough opportunities for our military. This is happening, for example, in the area of Hulaypol, which was an extremely difficult sector throughout the winter.
And our systematic counterattacks struck at the logistics on the flank in these sectors, thanks to special operations carried out by our special forces and intelligence services, allow us to hold the front and destroy the vast majority of enemy troops in this sector.
Our fighters also distinguished themselves near Lyman. As reported by the 3rd Army Corps, the enemy, lacking enough assault troops, decided to advance here using an old proven method. They assembled a column of armored vehicles and tried to break through our defenses. The result was quite predictable.
Russian IFVs and tanks were attacked by swarms of FPV drones from the Silver Battalion unit. Ukrainian artillery also joined in the destruction of the column. Ukrainian strikes forced the Russian column to retreat, but as they withdrew, they were also pursued by Ukrainian drones. With the support of fighters from the 3rd Assault Brigade, the 63rd Mechanized Brigade, and artillery from the 60th Mechanized Brigade, the column was hit. Every single vehicle was accounted for, as noted by the Corps. As a result of the coordinated actions of the units, they destroyed a tank, 3 armored personnel carriers, and eliminated infantry.
At the same time, the defense forces are not forgetting about their deep strike missions. However, alongside the ongoing fires at oil refineries, military targets themselves have increasingly started to appear in the reports. Apparently, the reconnaissance and planning of many missions have reached their final stages.
The main intelligence directorate released a video showing drones attacking 2 patrol ships, the Okatnik, a Project 1496 M1C tug, a Project 16640 firefighting vessel, and another BK-16 landing craft. Most likely, kamikaze drones equipped with Starlink antennas were used.
At the same time, when assessing the overall situation at the front, analysts from the Institute for the Study of War believe that in March, Russia planned to continue applying pressure and to build on it. Tactical successes near Orikhiv and Hulyaypol, as well as intensifying attacks in the Slovyansk-Kramatorsk area. However, the blocking of Starlink and the further advance of the Ukrainian armed forces have clearly disrupted these plans, and now Russia is forced to abandon its major spring breakthrough.
the powder keg of Europe. Belarus is preparing a bloody provocation against Poland. Lukashenko has finally decided to strike. But Warsaw has already prepared a deadly response. Minsk is next in line after Tehran. Lukashenko smells trouble brewing. Panic in the offices of Minsk. See the details.
The Belarusian dictator Lukashenko has once again descended into senility. The aging Batka sees enemy plots everywhere. And
Now I will show you where the attack on Belarus was being prepared from. In
response, according to Western intelligence, Belarus, under the Kremlin's direction, has begun actively preparing its own provocations on the border with Europe. Specifically in Poland, where Lukashenko and Putin have long promised to carve out the Suwałki corridor to Russia's Kaliningrad.
Intelligence, which has already informed a number of European intelligence agencies and communities, reports that Russia is preparing a whole series of subversive provocations and sabotage operations from Belarusian territory. These are directed against a number of countries, including the Republic of Poland and official Warsaw.
Against this backdrop, Putin is only adding fuel to the fire by demonstratively sending more and more new equipment and instructors to Belarus, and by setting up factories and enterprises there for the repair of military equipment and weapons. Lukashenko himself is conducting exercises on the border with Europe and inspections of defense capabilities.
these same men started a war not far from our borders.
Whether the aging dictator ate too many potatoes or forgot to take his medication, the Polish government was alarmed by Lukashenko's statement.
I will definitely respond. In
the end, for security reasons, Poland is closing the airspace in the east of the country.
Official representatives from the Polish government have formally announced that the country is closing its entire national airspace for a period of as long as 3 months. Specifically, this closure will be in effect from March 10th all the way through to June 9th, 2026. Consequently, the airspace and the sky above the nation will be completely closed to all traffic. All of this is being done as part of ensuring security.
Moreover, NATO troops have also gotten involved. They began demonstratively moving Western military equipment along Poland's borders, thereby showing Putin that provoking the alliance is not a good idea, even more so.
Well, that's just nonsense, really. Why keep spreading these stories? The situation is not like that at all. In the situation of 2026, Russia will not attack the Suwałki corridor, let alone Poland. That's nonsense.
Nevertheless, the Kremlin continues to push its agenda, stuffing Belarus with weapons, including nuclear ones. And all this, analysts explain, is because after the events in the Middle East, Putin is scared out of his wits. He understands perfectly well that if it comes to it, he could be removed just as quickly as the Iranian leader. That's why he's trying to shift the target from Moscow to Minsk.
The Russians want to use Belarusian territory in the event of a nuclear conflict so that the strike would hit Belarusian territory, not Russia or Moscow.
However, it's unlikely that the bunker dwellers' multi-step scheme will go unnoticed. By Western intelligence agencies,
all their strategic plans for using Belarusian nuclear weapons, as they say, all of them will go off the rails. What?
As for Lukashenko, Poland, by closing part of its airspace, made it clear that it is not to be trifled with, and even more so, that provoking Warsaw into further escalation is not a good idea. After all, if the West so desires, the Belarusian regime could fall just as suddenly as the Iranian one.
China's knife in Putin's back, the Celestial Empire is taking Russian lands. Xi and Trump have signed a secret verdict for the Kremlin. Urgent, the Great Split has begun, and China has officially betrayed Russia and launched a full-scale offensive. While Moscow believed in the Union, Beijing began a ruthless takeover of Russian territories. See the details. Russia and China are talking more and more about a friendship without limits. Moscow calls Beijing its main strategic partner. But now, a new geopolitical game is starting around this friendship called Russian oil. And
as for Russian-Chinese relations, you can confidently say that for them, any time of year is spring. In
early April, Trump is preparing his visit to China, and it is there. The US is considering the possibility of asking China to reduce its oil purchases from Russia, and instead to buy more American oil.
But it's impossible to imagine that the loss of, say, Russian oil volumes would maintain normal conditions in the global energy sector and the world economy.
More likely, a drop in oil volumes will lead to a decline in the Russian economy. But anyway, no matter how you look at it, China today is one of the major buyers of this very oil. And on top of that, Putin is selling it to his friend at a good discount.
When it comes to Vladimir Putin, he simply has no other viable choice left. If something really does happen in China and China suddenly stops buying, then things will get really bad. Of course, it makes no logical sense for China to refuse this, at least for now. I honestly don't see what kind of leverage Trump could possibly offer. That would actually make China refuse.
At the same time, in the West, it is increasingly said that China has significant influence over the Russian economy, which means it can use this influence in politics as well. But
You know, this war is fully supported by China. And China could call Vladimir Putin and end this war as soon as tomorrow by stopping the supply of dual-use technologies that they are selling.
Beijing is gradually expanding its economic presence even in regions that were previously considered Russia's sphere of influence. For example, in the countries of Central Asia.
China is strengthening its influence in Central Asia. In Kazakhstan, it is preparing to build a nuclear power plant. In Uzbekistan and Kyrgyzstan, it is seeking to capture the automotive markets. In Tajikistan, it is targeting the mining industries.
China is investing in roads, railways, and infrastructure. Today, it is already the largest trading partner for many countries.
This process has been going on for a very, very long time. Chinese interests in Central Asia vary from country to country, but they have been present almost from the very beginning, after the collapse of the Soviet Union. China's influence has grown there so much that it has become visible to the naked eye. If before this was only noticeable to those who closely studied these countries, of course, Russia's influence is still felt, but it decreases with each passing year.
Since I already mentioned the friendship without borders, this is precisely about the fact that the Celestial Empire is strengthening its position even within Russia itself, especially in the Far East. And it seems that the Russians themselves don't really like this very much.
And the Chinese have long been saying, well, Baikal is ours. I say that's right. Soon they'll say Crimea is ours. They're already using all our resources, gold, coal, oil, gas, everything. They're a world power while we live in poverty.
Although the funniest thing is that it's actually Russia inviting Chinese companies, counting on investment and regional development.
Putin has brought a lot of old Soviet jokes to life. There was this old Soviet joke. The night on the Finnish-Chinese border passed quietly. Well, that's Putin for you. He's moving at an accelerated pace toward making that joke a reality. And without a doubt, today Russia depends on China in every respect.
Interestingly, within Russia itself now, panic. Russian media are claiming that China intends to reclaim its territories. In
Chinese history, textbooks often mention that almost all of Siberia, including Western Siberia up to the Tomsk region, are temporarily lost Chinese lands. And
here, apparently, she decided to play by the Kremlin's rules. After all, Putin also likes to tie everything to history.
Many major Chinese corporations are now exceptionally active and involved in the vast and remote Siberian and Far Eastern regions. Furthermore, the Chinese are actively settling these lands and extracting the abundant natural resources available there.
So, is the transfer of Russian territories to Beijing just a matter of time?
In my opinion, today this will depend solely on China's desire. Because there are some territories, small ones, but still, there are territories that Russia has transferred to China, legally speaking. It's unclear on what grounds, but they were transferred nonetheless. But of course, if we're talking about large territories like the Far East and Siberia, there the Chinese expansion is economic. In many places, it's simply total.
It seems that China's policy is quite simple. Everyone just chooses what is most beneficial for them, and it doesn't matter whether Putin is involved or not at all.
Someone's just hanging around underfoot here. Well, whatever, it's fine. We'll make use of things here, and then we'll see how it goes. If it's profitable, we'll stay in some kind of relationship like that. If it's not profitable, we'll send them packing.
Let Putin go on living in his rosy dreams about a reliable partner in the form of China. In reality, though, Beijing acts according to its own logic. It takes resources, technology, and investments, but never takes risks for someone else's interests.